Hey everyone, welcome to another Power Monkey podcast. On today's episode, Chad and I interview Kari Pearce. Kari is coming off an incredible third place finish at the most recent CrossFit Games that happened just a few weeks ago. That makes her the fittest American woman in 2018, 2019, and now 2020. She's also the first American woman to finish on the podium at the CrossFit Games since 2014. She's leading into 2021 with a lot of momentum. We talk a little bit about some changes that have happened in her life. She's recently moved from New York City out to Las Vegas. We also talk about the uniqueness of this particular CrossFit Games, being that 2020 was such a struggle for most people in terms of training and not really knowing what the season was going to look like. She also has a unique background coming from the gymnastics world, having been a gymnast at the University of Michigan, transitioning into the Olympic weightlifting world, the physique world, the powerlifting world, before finding her love for CrossFit. We hope you guys enjoy this episode. Kari is an incredible athlete, and we hope you get a lot out of this one. So, Kari Pearce, thank you so much for jumping onto the Power Monkey podcast with us. We appreciate having you on.
Of course, it's my pleasure.
How are things going?
Things are good. Things have been, slowed down a little bit after the game. So it's nice taking a breath and taking a little break from training. Like, I love working out, so I've still been kind of going to the gym, but jumping in classes and stuff and getting to explore Las Vegas a little bit more, which I just moved to about 4 months ago. So yeah, things are good. No complaints.
So I want to jump into that in a second, but just first, obviously, an enormous congratulations for that performance at the games a couple of weeks ago. I want to go through it. We had Haley Adams on last week and went and got her perspective on what was different about this year's game, specifically the whole process leading up to what happened in Aromas. But it was incredible to watch. And I think in a lot of ways, your performance, especially leading into the end of the weekend, was one of the highlights of the weekend. And I think we want to go over a little bit of some of the workouts and specifically how you finished up that weekend, but an absolute masterful way to finish up an incredibly challenging weekend. So congrats from all of us at Power Monkey. It was incredible to watch.
Thank you so much. It was incredible to feel, and the last workout was painful, but it was definitely worth it. And like you said, just a strong way to finish the weekend. So I couldn't have asked for anything better.
Can we just jump in right to that? Because I think that's a lasting image of my games experience from this past couple of weeks. And going into last weekend, me, Chad, and Hinshaw had a discussion about this when we did our games recap a couple weeks ago as well. And, coming into that last workout, there were two other workouts prior to that on that day, and you finished fifth in both of them. So, you finished fifth out of the 5 women. What is going through your head when you hear the workout at Atlanta, what it is? Obviously, it's a lot of bodyweight stuff, kind of in your wheelhouse. But what were you thinking about in terms of how to attack something like that to be able to say, I need to finish on my strongest foot possible? What was your mentality going into that last workout when you found out what it was?
I was really excited when I found out what it was. I couldn't have asked for a better workout for the final, especially because, like you said, I got 2 fifths in the morning, so I was in 5th place going into the final. But the way the points were this year, if you could win a workout and, then you could separate yourself a little bit from all the other athletes. And obviously things had to play out in my favor as far as the points go for the last event for me to get on the podium. But it was basically just came down to, I have to do what I can do. And I won Murph, I won Mary. And so everyone's like, well, on paper you should win, but still you have to go out there and win. And so it was just kind of be in my zone for the entire workout. And just from the minute, 3, 2, 1, go, I've never felt like how I felt in that workout. It was just like this tunnel vision and just kind of put your body in autopilot. Like, your body knows what to do. You just have to trust it and not do anything stupid as far as strategy goes, because it's, a mile run into 100 handstand push-ups with a weight vest, into 200 pistols with a weight vest, and 300 pull-ups with a weight vest. So if you try to go too hard at anything in the beginning, you're going to die. And so me and my coach were like, okay, start off with 10, 15. I did 15 handstand push-ups, and then we were like, okay, it'll slowly break down. But pull-ups, you're probably going to feel good right at the beginning, but don't go as big as you want, because 300 is a lot. So you need to be smart with the way you break it up, and you don't want to hit muscle fatigue near the beginning of those 300. So just kind of set a rhythmic pace for it. And luckily I was able to get a good lead on the handstand push-ups and then just kind of cruise on the pistols and pull-ups, though Katrin almost caught me on the pull-ups and then just went balls to the wall on the run to finish strong. And left it all out on the floor. So I had no regrets.
Yeah, and I really just want to touch on the last run. You know, you finished up your pull-ups. You ended up breaking them up into like doubles and singles by the end. Looked like just kind of like hanging on for dear life before the run. And I think even the commentators and everyone watching were like, okay, let's see what happens in this last mile. Is Katrin slowly going to catch up? By the time that run comes up, is Katrin going to be able to overtake Kari? And you took off in that last mile. Like, that last mile was absolutely incredible. It looked like you hadn't even been doing anything prior to that last mile run. And everybody else, all the other guys, all the other women were taking their time, trying to catch their breath. I don't know how it was possible for you to run that fast that you did on the last mile. That was the most incredible thing I saw the entire games weekend.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, my coach was like right there telling me like, Kat's catching up, Kat's catching up. So it was kind of like in the back of my mind, like before those last couple pull-ups, it was just like, okay, you have to get like mentally ready just to run like you've never run before, especially at the end of a workout, because Kat's such a phenomenal runner. Like, I don't know what she's capable of, especially in the end of a workout too. Like, you never know. And so right when I finished that last pull-up, it was just like, jump off and go. Like I said, I didn't want to have any regrets. And I knew Podium was like right there in my grasp. So I had to leave it all out on the floor. And I heard like some people talking, they're like, well, you ended up being like plenty ahead of her, like by the end, like, why didn't you slow down or walk? And I was like, I just wanted to get it done. I didn't want to like, oh, well, maybe if I walk a little bit, then she's going to slowly catch up. I didn't want to play any of those games. I was like, I just have to go. And like, in my mind, there was two things that I was thinking. One was Podium. And then the other one was like, you can rest months after this. So it's like,
Right.
You'll get your rest, earn it. So
Love it. And the best comment, you finish in under 48 minutes, and you cross the finish line, devastating workout, you're laying on the ground, and the camera pans over, and you say, I really like that workout. Everybody's like, oh my goodness, what is going on? How is it possible for someone to go through 3 days, 12 workouts, finish something like that, and just say, I really like that workout? Just a round of applause from all of us for how amazing that was to watch. Very, very cool.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I was like, all the things like going through my mind. And I was like, I don't know if I said like, I like it because, you know, they said it was one of the hardest final, one of the hardest workouts, or like, I really like the middle section of it. The runs on either end. Well,
Sure.
I mean, you were a gymnast, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like the runs, well, we made it through, and I was like able to push myself more than I thought. So I think that's like part of it too, is I like the workout because it not obviously if you win, you like workouts. But just like proving to myself that I deserve to be on the podium from that kind of performance, I think is another reason that I like the workout.
So any plans to do that workout again? I mean, that's all I can think as you're talking about this and the last comment there. Any plans to do that again in the near future?
That's a good question. I'll leave that up to my coach. I have a very strong feeling that he's going to say no, because he's like, 300
Right.
pull-ups is not smart. Though my lats were kind of sore and my biceps ended up being a little sore like 48 hours after. So that Tuesday, my biceps were sore, my quads from the pistols as well. And I only got like a little baby blood blister on my hand, so left me no wrist. But I don't know. I think I've done Murph twice in my life, like written as it's written, and that was at the games. So I don't think my coach is going to have me do it in training. But
Those are the only 2 times you've ever done Murph at the game?
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Yeah. My coach is like a big believer, like that's a lot to do in training.
Sure.
So, and he's
Sure.
like, especially with like my Achilles, we don't do a lot of weighted runs and stuff. So he's like, we'll save it for the games. If it comes up, your body will know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Now, while we're on the topic of competing, I mean, talking about the CrossFit Games, one of the things that I'm always curious about when we talk to really any athletes, but especially very high level athletes, you know, meaning that you put so much time in, you put so much time and energy. This is your life. This is what you do. This is what you plan to continue doing, I assume. So in your words, what is your why for competing? You know, why have you done it up to this point, specifically CrossFit? And, you know, if you do plan on moving forward and doing it for a longer period of time, which I assume you are, what is your why there? What is your major goal?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great question, especially any high level athlete needs a why, because daily training is not easy and you have to like be fully committed. So I was a gymnast for 18 years. So I grew up being a competitor. And after I finished that, I was still like, I want to do something. What can I do? So I got into some weightlifting, and then I hurt my back. I got some carpal tunnel. So I switched to physique show. And then I didn't like that. I didn't like being told how to look. So I picked up powerlifting, and that was fun, but I still felt like something was missing. So that's when I found CrossFit. And I just love CrossFit because it reminds me of gymnastics in that there's so many different things you can learn and perfect and get better at. So I think I just got addicted to it. And it helps being successful at such an early stage. I started CrossFit in November 2014, and then I made the games in 2015. So it was like, I was very successful early on, but I, at the games, still got 21st. And I'm like, I want to do better than that. So then I was able to improve on it the next year. And there's just, like you said, there's so many things to work on and get better at that it keeps me going. And I'm just such a competitive person. Like, that's my nature. And I just want to keep pushing it and seeing where I can take my body. And obviously now, like, I mean, I finished third this year, which is the top that I've been. So you get addicted and you're like, okay, now I want to do better. I want to do better. And I want to see, where I can take my body. So I think that's my why and why I do it at the end of the day.
Awesome. Yeah, keep riding that momentum while you can, for sure. And I didn't realize that you had spent some time in weightlifting and powerlifting both before jumping into you did all those before jumping into CrossFit any at all?
Yeah. So, I mean, weightlifting was very short lived. So I went to University of Michigan for college. And
Yep.
then I asked because we had a strength conditioning coach. So I was like, I want to keep working out, but I can't, like, my body was beat up from gymnastics. I'm like, I'm done with gymnastics. And he was like, you should do weightlifting. Like, you have the perfect levers for it. So I ended up interning for strength conditioning and then doing some weightlifting, but I ended up bulging a disc in my back, and they said it was probably from gymnastics, and then it just flared up right after. And then I had some like symptoms of carpal tunnel in my wrist. So they're like, you need to rest. So the doctor at that time told me I had to take 6 months off of squatting. And so I was like, it's hard to weightlift if you can't squat. So then I jumped into physique, like bodybuilding training, because you can do leg extensions and leg curls for your legs, and it's more, aesthetic than performance. And then I moved to New York City, actually, and one of the trainers at our gym was a powerlifting coach. So he's like, you should do a powerlifting meet, like, you're strong. So I'm like, I don't know what my maxes are. So we kind of changed gears in my training, and I ended up doing a powerlifting competition, and that was in November 2014, like right before I started CrossFit. So I had the weightlifting stuff, but there was no endurance background. And when I started CrossFit, I don't think I could have even like run a mile, or it would have been like a 10-minute mile, something like super embarrassing.
It doesn't sound like it's too hard to talk you into any form of competition, the way that you tell that story. But, even though your weightlifting was for a short period of time and powerlifting as well, man, what an incredible background. Obviously all the years of gymnastics, but even having just that short period of time to focus on weightlifting and powerlifting outside of CrossFit, most athletes don't get that.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. And when I say, like, I started CrossFit in November 2014 and then made the games in 2015, like, okay, 6 months of doing CrossFit, but I have like 20 plus years of athletic experience behind it. And just like the body awareness and everything that comes with it just directly helped me in CrossFit.
And I will tell you, because I know Dave's got some gymnastics questions for you, so we'll get to those for sure. And I'm curious as well. But even that short amount of time you spent weightlifting probably hindered your running a little bit as well. So
yeah, you're right about that. And now, like, you try to get stronger in CrossFit, and you're like, oh, but you're doing so much running, and so it's like this like constant battle of, I want to get stronger, but I also want to be good at endurance. So you got to take a little bit of each to benefit it both.
For sure. As a weightlifter, I'm never gonna enjoy running, and hats off to you for the improvements that you've been able to make. And as Dave said, the way that you attacked that last round was incredible. So
thank you so much.
I think it's kind of funny you were saying it would be embarrassing to have a 10-minute mile. Chad, what's your mile?
Let's go ahead and move on to gymnastics. How about that?
Wait, I thought you were answering. We need to answer that question.
Okay, I'll answer that question. I think my best mile is early sevens, like 7:10 or something like that.
That's good, man.
That is really good.
I mean, the first time I ran a mile, it was I think somewhere around 8, which for a weightlifter is not bad. And it took me many years of CrossFit to get it down to close to that 7-minute mark. So I guess I can't be too displeased with that.
Yeah,
No,
that's
definitely not.
that's solid. Solid. We'll
Except
have
for
more
Matt
workouts together.
Frazier, except for Matt Frazier runs an 8-minute mile to recover. So that doesn't make me feel too good.
But Matt Frazier, is just like on his own level.
For sure.
Well, coming to the Fraziers and the Tias of the world, and you've been steadily moving up the leaderboard over the years. 5th last year, 3rd this year. Top placing woman from the U.S. the last couple of years. You're kind of the United States representative on the podium this year, and it's noteworthy because we haven't had someone finish at the top of the podium for a decade now. And it's been a while. It's been dominated by the Icelandic women and the Europeans, and I'm curious, and obviously Tia, Australian as well. But I'm curious what your thoughts are in terms of, one, is Tia beatable right now, and two, what things are you trying to implement your training to try to move up to second and to first? What's missing from your training right now, and also, what separates Tia? Is she possible to be beaten right now with where she's at?
Yeah, so I mean, the main weaknesses that I have are running, which we've been working a lot on, so it's gotten significantly better, and weightlifting, leg strength. Being a gymnast for a long time, I'm sure you know, Dave. The leg strength, I don't know what it is. It just doesn't want to move. I mean, as Chad said, part of it's running. When you do a lot of running and the cardio stuff, like, it's gonna affect your strength. But it's crazy because, like, for me, like, I didn't do jerks for like almost 3 months because of my wrist, and I come back and I can jerk like 95% within 2 weeks. I don't squat for a week and I feel like it goes down 10 to 15 pounds.
Right.
And so leg strength is definitely something that I've been constantly working on, and is something that I need to improve in order to get to the top of the podium, especially cleans. And Tia she's such an all-around solid athlete. Like, she weighs, I think, like 130 pounds maybe, and she can front squat like 315, and her clean and jerk is like 275, and she can run really fast, and she can swim really well, and she can do like 20 unbroken ring muscle ups. So she's just such a well-rounded athlete that doesn't have any holes. And like, I think the one that she does, we saw at the games, which was the handstand walk, which, I mean, has significantly gotten better over these past couple of years. So, I mean, I think in order for anybody to beat her, I think all of us, the rest of us, at least I know that we have weaknesses that have to be addressed in order to get to the top of the podium, because she's so well-rounded.
And my assumption is that you think you can beat her, and that's why you're training. You're training not to finish 3rd on the podium, not to be the top U.S. athlete, but to be first, and to really kind of finish on that top of that podium and be able to say, okay, I knocked Tia off that top part of the podium, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think anybody is beatable, and, everyone has bad days, everyone has good days. And like you said, you don't train hours and hours and hours and devote your life to getting 2nd or 3rd place.
Absolutely. And right now you finished first in the last workout of the game, so you actually have the honor of being the first place finisher in the last workout leading into the next open. So that's something in your favor as well.
Yeah, I like that.
So Chad mentioned a little bit about gymnastic stuff, and I just want to touch on I want to ask you a couple of questions about other workouts from the games. One about the handstand walk. You just brought it up. The handstand walk specifically, I love handstands. I think you know that, and I love being upside down. I'm sure you do as well, being a former gymnast. But can you tell me about that one? It's something that we discussed specifically about your handstand walk in relation to some of the other women that we saw. The women's handstand walk was very interesting in how it played out. And I'm curious about your strategy and your approach to handstand walking, and if you've ever done that before, kind of a speed handstand walk type of event.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll say that my handstand is not as pretty as it used to be in gymnastics, or as pretty as you do. My gymnastics coaches probably would not be happy with it now. But back in, I think it was 2016, there was we had a sprint, and then there was a little reset, and we went into a handstand walk.
Right.
And that year, Katrin got first, I got second, and Brooke got third. And so, I mean, this year we're it is going to be a close race between all of the girls, because, I mean, Haley was phenomenal at handstand walking, and me, Katrin, and Brooke were 1, 2, 3 when the field was 40 athletes. So you just show where we're at compared to, all the other CrossFit athletes. And I mean, me and my coach were like, okay, let's just try and go unbroken, go as fast as you can. And even at the beginning though, like I could see Brooke kind of out of the corner of my eye, and I saw it's like, she's just fast on her hands. I don't know, like she was basically like running, it seemed like. I thought I was going fast, and then I could see Haley. Well, I saw somebody else. I wasn't sure if it was Haley or if it was Katrin, like to the left of me. And I'm like, okay, we'll try to just like keep moving as fast as you can. But I did see Brooke like come down and then kick back up. And this year is a little interesting because usually, like last year, your hands have to be behind the start line. In like history, it just had to be your foot. But like I think last year, maybe the year before, it had to be your hands. And this year they changed it so it's your foot. So technically, you could walk your hands like just ahead and then come down and then kick back up, where you could like gain a little bit of ground. But I was scared, like if I came down, it would take a second and then try to get back up. And if I felt myself slow down, me and my coach were like, okay, come down, shake it out real quick, and then go back up. But my arms were starting to get tired by the end, but it wasn't close to failure. So I was like, just keep going. And so, I mean, I basically went with our plan, and Brooke was just faster. But me and Haley were like right there together. So back in 2016, I kicked down, I took a second, and then I ran across the finish. And this year I was like, don't do that. Like, come down and just go. And then you can see where you're at afterward.
Yeah. And I thought it was amazing. Obviously, doing that whole unbroken, you and Haley were the only two that did it unbroken. Even Brooke came down, and all of the guys came down at least once. You answered it already, but strategy there, go unbroken rather than come down and shake out. Positionally, I had a question for you. And you mentioned it earlier that your gymnastics coaches might not be happy. And I have to bring this up just because I'm a gymnastics, coach, and my gymnastics background kind of forces me to want to talk about this. But your position, your position in your handstand is pretty arched. And to me, it looks like you rely a ton on how strong your shoulders are in your handstand. Your shoulders are so strong that it allows you to stay inverted even if the position is off for a lot longer than other people. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like you can revert back to your shoulder strength as opposed to making the position perfect and just say, that's what I'm going to rely on, my strength of my shoulders to get through this position, rather than making the handstand as perfect as possible?
Yeah, I definitely rely on my strengths. And it's one of those things too, like when I did gymnastics, I was like just strong, and bars, I would like always muscle it. Like it was never pretty. And I always tried to muscle it. And it was the same, like when I started weightlifting, like I tried to use my arms too much because they're strong. And so, yeah, I get into some bad habits, like you said, especially like my shoulder, because I'm planched more than I should be. And like you said, arched, but it's just something that I've gotten comfortable with over the years. And, like you said, there's sometimes you should change something, but you get comfortable with it. And me and my coach are like, well, your shoulders are strong, you can just get away with it. But I mean, if it was a longer walk and my shoulders died out, then obviously it would be advantageous, but it was short enough that I could stay unbroken the whole time.
I love it. And this brings up a huge point. I want this to be a note to the listeners, so just bear with me, because this is something that I preach quite a bit. It's when you watch someone at the games like yourself, who finishes, so high in a handstand workout, you finish second of the games in this workout, you're one of the leaders when it comes to handstand walking within the community, but you rely on your strength, and you have that strength to be able to work through a workout like that. What I always try to tell people is that you should ask more questions when you're watching someone do a handstand walk like this, and understand exactly why they're doing that in that particular way. What I mean is, we don't really recommend other people learning it that way, right? You can get away with it because you know what's going on. You do it on purpose because you're relying on a strength that allows you to maximize the potential within that workout. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to transfer to someone who's starting from scratch. And I think it's always a missed opportunity for someone that says, look at Kari's handstand walk. She's one of the best in the world at it. I'm going to try to emulate that. It's always a missed opportunity to be able to ask more questions as to why you're doing it that way. And I think you answered it really well there. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. And something too, like I think that's super important that you mentioned that, because like in gymnastics too, it's always like straight body. And it's like, especially if someone's learning, you need that straight body. And that's what I was taught. And then in competition though, I arch more just because it's better for speed. But there's always a time and place. And similar to like butterfly, pull-ups, and strict, like unless you're like an elite athlete, like you don't need to do butterfly, like you need to focus on your strict. And I think it's important that you mentioned that about handstand walk, because it's so true. And so many people like see me and they're like, how do you walk like that? And I'm like, don't learn to walk like that. Like it's competition. Like just for competition for me because I'm a high level athlete and that's what it takes. But in daily training, no, don't do that.
And you have almost 2 decades of gymnastics training under your belt where you know how to do good technique and you're applying this technique for a specific situation. Very, very important for listeners to understand. So thank you for clarifying that.
Of
Dave,
course.
how much did you love hearing her say that about the pull-ups? No, no butterfly
Oh,
pull-ups.
I know. Yeah, you made my day right there too. I didn't even have to kind of egg you on. Strict before kipping, strict before butterfly. Don't do butterfly unless you're in competition. All in my wheelhouse. See, this is how gymnasts think. You know, technique matters, right? All of this stuff is very important if you want to be able to have longevity within your training. So not only about competition, but let's think about longevity too.
Yeah. And when I started CrossFit, I could not butterfly at all, but the strict were so strong because, you know, that's all you do in gymnastics. So
Sure.
the butterfly came easily. So yeah, strict.
Awesome. Well, I wonder, you know, we're talking about your gymnastics background, of course, and some of the strengths that you have, you know, the technical mindset, the upper body strength that you gained from all of those years, obviously, and the skills, the obvious advantages for you coming into CrossFit. Is there anything other than those obvious aspects that you brought into CrossFit from gymnastics? What did you learn, and what other characteristics or strengths do you think you have because of that?
I think there's a lot that gymnastics taught me. Number one, just body awareness too. Like from a young age, you have to know where your body is in space. And I think that just helps me learn like the weightlifting technique. And like I said, even just like having the strict strength and then learning how to butterfly or learning just how to move my body, even like for rowing or running or different things. Like I just know my body very well. And also like, unfortunately too, like having injuries with gymnastics, like I learned that injuries are going to be a part of it, but you have to learn how to deal with it and learn that there's always something that you can do, even if you are injured. Like I hurt my wrist. I just did a lot of squatting and running. So I know a lot of people look at injuries negatively, but there can be a positive, and just having a lot of injuries in gymnastics, I definitely learned that. And then also just the mindset. Like I started competing at 5 years old, so I'm used to being in front of a crowd. And when it comes to CrossFit, you know, you don't do well if you like just at home in your box, you're comfortable there. But what about in competition when you're in front of people and, you know, when a lot of people get nervous and either mess up or and do something uncharacteristic because they're not used to competing. So I think that's another benefit that doing gymnastics offered for CrossFit.
Yeah, absolutely a skill. Competing is definitely a skill in itself, and the fact that you have all those years behind you there is definitely an advantage. I would agree for sure.
What about your NCAA experience? And I want to bring this up only because, you know, NCAA gymnastics is in kind of NCAA in general, and Olympic sports at NCAA right now are kind of an interesting position. But what years were you at Michigan?
So I was at Michigan from 2007 to 2011.
Okay. And during that time, you were All-American a few times and part of some Big Ten championships.
Yeah, my team won 4 Big Ten championships. So we won every year that I was there.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
So, Michigan's amazing. Ann Arbor's amazing. You grew up in Ann Arbor area, so you grew
Yep.
up a Wolverine fan from a young age.
Yeah, I did. And when it came time for college, it was either Michigan or Florida, because Florida also has a very good gymnastics program. But just after, I mean, you know, when you visit schools, you can feel what's right. And Michigan was just so close, though, that I'm like, I don't know, like it's almost too close. But my dad got transferred to Chicago my freshman and sophomore year. So it ended up working out that my family wasn't there. And also when I agreed to go to college there, I'm like, you guys aren't going to come and visit me unless you tell me that you're coming, because I don't want any surprise visits. Like I want to enjoy college. Yeah. So luckily I got to enjoy college and be nice and close to home as well.
Absolutely. I went on a recruiting trip to Michigan too. I loved it out there. I had a great time. I was always very close with the Michigan guys. But to me, gymnastics was always about the team more than it was about the individual. And I think people kind of lose this idea about what gymnastics is about sometimes because they see the individual out there on competition floor, whether that be at the Olympics, World Championships, or an NCAA type setting. But for me, the collegiate setting taught me what it meant to be part of a team. And I know you're competing as an individual right now in the CrossFit world, but did you get that same sense competing for Michigan that the team was more important than the individual? And did competing on a collegiate team teach you anything different than competing as an individual prior to getting to the collegiate level?
Yeah, so I definitely agree. Like when you go to college, it is all about the team. Like growing up, doing junior Olympic gymnastics, like it is about the individual. Like you have your friends and you're like competing against them and you want them to do well, but you always want to do better. And then when you get to college, you want your teammates to do better than you. Just because it is about that team environment and you just like get this team camaraderie that nothing else matches. And yeah, the 4 years of college were 4 of the best years of my life, just because you do get these such close relationships and friendships. And I lived with 3 of the other girls for a couple of years, and it was just such an amazing experience. And like even now, like I continue to talk with those girls, which is just so cool because even after like the life of gymnastics, it just continues on. And that's a good question. Like I've never thought about if like college, the experience actually like plays into effect now, just being more on a team than individual. I've talked about this before. So I'm like, it's similar to like you develop friendships with the other girls because you see the other girls at like the same competitions around the year. Like you see what they're going through on a daily basis. So you kind of feel like your teammates in that sense, right? Because you guys experience the same things in life and you're, not going out like other people are. And so I think there's just like this respect for the other athletes. And I mean, you want them to do well, but obviously you still want to do a little bit better. So I think it's similar to that, like junior Olympic experience more than college. But you still do, I don't know, want them to do well and respect them.
Well, I think it's, interesting that, there's a little bit of a push going on trying to get functional fitness and CrossFit to be recognized as a potential Olympic sport later down the road. And there are collegiate programs now that have CrossFit teams and things like that. I have a feeling that as the sport continues to develop, that there'll be more opportunities to compete as teams. And I feel like someone who has experience on competing on an individual as part of a team will probably be able to kind of excel in that setting a little bit more. So I'm just looking forward for that day to actually happen because I think people will get a lot more out of CrossFit if there's an opportunity to compete as teams more.
Yeah, I agree. And I've told people sometimes, I'm like, if I ever burn out mentally or just feel like I'm not physically like getting better or something, like I think it would be fun to just switch gears and try a team because it's just so different, like training with a team and just having those friendships and stuff that everyone that I know who's an individual and then has gone team has just like reestablished their love for it or just found that team was a lot more fun and just a different experience too.
For sure. And with that team kind of mentality, I just want to talk about where you're at right now. I've been living in New York. I crossed paths with you on the East Coast for quite some time when I was living in New York as well. Actually, randomly enough, I think you lived on the street that I grew up on in New Jersey for a while. I remember just random story. I remember driving home right now. I'm pulling into my parents' driveway, and you walked right in front of my car. It was like, wow. This is like worlds colliding right now. This is very weird. Like, why is Kari Pearce walking in front of my parents' house in Harwood, New Jersey right now? This is very weird.
Yeah.
But you lived in New York for a while. You were training at Spot. You were training at Dynamics for a while. And Dynamics had one of the best teams for a number of years. And so you got to see kind of what that team was all about through that lens a little bit. But what made you leave New York, and how long have you been in Las Vegas?
Yeah, so just as you were speaking of Dynamics, so I started working with Justin Kotler, who was the coach of CrossFit Dynamics and owns Dynamics when I was in New York because he was close and it was easy. Like he had been around for a while, and I've been working with him for about 2 years. And through the whole COVID situation, gyms in New York were closed for 7 months. And kind of right after they closed down, he like waited it out a little bit. And he's just like, I can't do this anymore. So like him and his wife were deciding they wanted to move because they're like, we can't make ends meet in New York, especially with the crazy rent prices, like for apartments. And then also for the gym, they're like, we need to get out of here. So he trains Ryan Elrod, who lives in Las Vegas and was like Masters champ 35 to 39.
Ryan was a circuit performer too, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he did gymnastics.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was performing until like COVID hit and then everything closed down, him and his wife. And yeah, phenomenal CrossFit athlete as well. And Justin was like, we're thinking of moving. And then the next day, his wife contacted me, was like, we're going to move to Las Vegas. Do you want to move with us? And I just like paused for a second. So I'm like, Las Vegas is like the last place I ever thought I would live, because I was here once for a gymnastics meet. And that was like on the Strip. Like that was all I knew about Las Vegas. I didn't know like this whole other world existed that surrounded Vegas. And I came back the next day though, and I was like, sure. Like I was planning to move to Queens anyways to be closer to him, because I was living in Manhattan, and I was like, well, I guess Queens, Las Vegas, you know, same.
Wow.
So yeah, I ended up moving out to Las Vegas at the end of June, and I love it here.
That's great. And what there's a gym that you guys have? Are you training kind of directly with him at the home, or is there a gym already kind of in place?
Yeah, there's a gym already in place. It's called CrossFit Culmination, and it's where Ryan has been training, and him and his wife train together basically every day. And yeah, he was my training partner leading up to the games. No matter what I was doing, if I needed a workout partner, he was there with me. So he did a lot of crazy hill runs and crazy metcons and things, which was like so nice to have leading up to stage 1 and stage 2.
Yeah, that sounds like a big advantage there as well. I mean, if you think about going through that training without him, without a training partner that could push you in that way, I mean, it's just, you can't replace that, right?
No, you definitely can't. And I think part of it too, like you can have a training partner who's like super fit and pushes you in the workouts, and that's one thing, but he also is just like such a positive person and like a fun person to be around. And like when you get to the gym, like he's just 100% like in, and he's never negative. Like he'll have knee injury, whatever, like he has things going on and you never hear about it. He's just such a joy to be around, and he's super fit. So it's like a great combination. And I didn't have a training partners in New York, so it's been so nice having him to train with while I'm here.
Yeah, we've heard from different athletes about working with a training partner, and some athletes prefer to train alone. Some athletes prefer to train with someone else at their level, and maybe even a little bit of a higher level, so they have a rabbit to chase. Some people don't like training, like, you know, Fraser doesn't like training with other guys. He prefers to train with Tia or by himself. Do you have any specific, you know, things that you really prefer when it comes to training partners, or do you find this situation to be better than when you had in New York, now that you have someone that actually is at a relatively high level?
Yeah, so at first I thought I didn't like training partners. When I started training CrossFit, I had like a team, and that was a lot of fun. And then I started training by myself, and I was like, okay, I like this better. Like sometimes people jump in and everything, but sometimes you're training with somebody and they just like to talk. And that's not, I'm not at the gym to talk. I'm like, when we're done with our training, like perfect. Like we can talk as much as you want. And like a little bit of chitter chatter, like while you're working out is fine. But like when you start to talk and like you end up having like more rest and your session's just taking longer and it's drawn out. And then, and then if my session's too long, I get hungry by the end and I'm hangry. And so I like having a training partner. It's just the right training partner. And so like with Ryan, I had different strength and weightlifting stuff to do beforehand. And then we would always jump into our metcons together, or like monostructural stuff, which ended up being perfect for me. So like I didn't feel rushed when I'm like working on the technique and strength and things like that for weightlifting. And then it's nice having the push of somebody in a metcon. So I think that's like the perfect situation for me. But like I said, when I was in New York, I thought I just want to train alone. But then you get somebody that is like at a high level, or even someone who's not, and then they can like scale the weights and help push you. I think that helps me with training, because in my mind, like even if they're slow or whatever, I'm like, okay, lap them. Oh, okay, try and beat them by 2 minutes. Oh, try and do this. So I constantly like am competing with people in training, if I can get somebody to join, which I definitely think helps in the long run.
And now leading into next season now, this will be your home base. You have your training partner, you have your coach there. Things are still kind of unknown for what's going to be happening at the 2021. We know that the Open will be happening in February, so that's really not that far away. But how far have you planned out your training schedule for the upcoming year, and kind of what do you have on the agenda? Like, how much can you plan right now with everything going on?
So me and my coach actually sit and meet every, like after any major competition. And then we really have like a sit down meeting after the games. So we waited about 2 weeks to do that, just because he's like, I'm going to leave you alone, like let you like recover mentally, physically, everything. And then we'll sit down, we'll have our meeting, kind of review the year and talk about next year. And yeah, it was like, we were talking about next year, but like you said, it's hard to plan because number one, we don't even know what the season's going to look like. Like you said, we have the Open, which starts February 18th. And then after that, like they said, there's going to be a new season, but we don't have like any details. And I mean, I'm guessing the games, if everything like goes back to somewhat normal and we can do the games, like at least 30 or 40 athletes, it's going to be the end of July or beginning of August timeframe, which it normally is. But we still don't really know anything. And I mean, like right now I'm still not training. I'm working out for fun. And it'll be that way for about a month. My coach is like, whenever you're ready to come back, like I want you itching to come back. So he's like, take like the time. And I feel like mentally more than anything, because this year was so long. The Open was in October. The games were in October. I think I had about 2 weeks off during the full year. So my body's just like starved for some rest and recovery. And I mean, luckily, like I'm pretty healthy. I have a few nagging things, but we're like, just let everything get completely healthy before we actually like jump back into training. So it is really hard trying to plan it out when you don't know what's happening. So my coach is just like, take some time to chill. And then maybe when we meet back up, we'll have a little bit more as far as what the next season's going to look like.
Yeah, you said a part of that recovery is obviously you're continuing to work out and move. You said you were jumping into regular CrossFit classes. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. And it's just been a lot of fun, like, because the members of the gym, like, always watch me and, like, they would say how cool it was if I could work out. So I've been trying to go to, like, different classes, like 4, a 5:30, a 6:30, just to meet different people and just get to work out with them and get to know the people at the gym that I'm training at, which is cool, especially because I'm new to Vegas. And so it's like meeting more people and, you know, just hanging out with them is always a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a treat for them. It excites me to hear you say that you're doing that. You know, someone on your level that can really take a step back and some time away to be a bigger part of the community, and that's only going to make them want to support you even more moving forward. And I'm sure that they were completely all in before, but you know, we're talking about competing, we're talking about training and everything that goes along with that. It's, you know, I think what people forget, and it's easy for all of us to forget, that an athlete, a high level athlete, is not just putting the time in the gym and the time for travel and competition. There's a lot of other things that go along with that, a recovery, nutrition, that you have to put so much time and energy into. But on top of that, you're also running a business. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. How, as someone that's putting all this time and you know, I feel like elite CrossFitters put more time than just about any, I mean, as much time as any other sport, if not more, because, you know, obviously definitely more than a weightlifter, right? I mean, I'm spending, you know, 2, maybe 3 hours a day in the gym, and that's about it. But um, how are you finding time and energy to run your business, and how's that going?
Thank you. Yeah, it's been crazy, and like you said, it's been like pretty busy, but I love it. So usually my training, especially since I moved to Vegas, I think it's actually been advantageous for my business as well, because my training partner trains 11 o'clock every day, and so I would wake up, get my first session done, usually like 8 to 9:30, rest a little bit, then I would train. The second session would be like 11 to 2:30 or 3, like depending on the day, and then I would have the afternoon to focus on recovery and focus on the business. So it's kind of nice to have like this mental switch too, because you can constantly be like in something so much. And like for me, I have such an addictive personality that it's like cross it. And then I started to work on the powerhouse business. And so it's like cross it until like, you know, 3:30, whenever I get home. And then I have this like mental switch, and it like turns from being me to being about other people and being about the business. So it's been nice, and I can focus on my recovery. Like I can, like I sit in my boots, or like sometimes I even like mobilize while I'm like on my phone, like doing some business stuff. But I also have like an amazing team behind me that makes it possible. So I'm like the face and the content creator of it. And then I have an amazing team that does all the marketing and makes everything come to life. So it's been cool. Like you said, just helping other people during it. And even during like COVID, when everyone was at home, like I did Facebook Lives and things to connect with people. And I think seeing the change that you're making in people's lives just makes me want to be more involved.
So you mentioned wanting to help other people, would you say, and your business is called Power Abs. So with Power Abs, would you say that that's your major why behind that? And what is your premier message to the athletes that take part in your program?
Yeah, so it is Power Abs, and it started off like basically like because everyone commented on my abs, and it's the many years of gymnastics. That's what I attribute it to, and just like the crazy core exercises that we had to do for all of those years. But as it's been around a little bit longer, it just shows that it's more than that. Like people have gained confidence. They've like kind of like take it. I don't want to say like taken their life back, but like have started to make like healthier choices just from like starting the Powerhouse program. It's 10 minutes, easy. But then they said they've like started changing like their nutrition habits and like focusing on themselves and like even adding other fitness in addition to it. And now we have a Facebook group, and I think we've like just hit 17,000 people that are in this community. Yeah. And it's so cool because they're just like all supporting each other. And there's people that are like, I've never taken a picture of myself before and like posted it publicly, but I feel confident to do it here because everyone is so supportive and it just feels right. And so it's been cool, like not just being focused on having abs, but just, kind of changing people's lives and just how they look at themselves.
That's awesome. I love when, there are byproducts like that, right? And I want to talk about the first part of that. The initial aim was to help athletes develop abs, right? So where they can see their abs. So how do you lead your clients to those results? And also, as it is kind of molded into something a little bit different, is there anything that you do different now to help lead them to those other results, those confidence results, those emotional results?
Yeah, so it started off, like you said, just for the abs and gymnast. We did crazy things just for ab strength. And so I incorporated some of those moves and then also like things that I've learned from CrossFit, and I did a little bit of personal training. And so like there's some high intensity body weight stuff in the program as well. So it's just 10 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And you don't need any equipment, but it's like basically, the intensity of a CrossFit workout for those 10 minutes. So it's really hard. And now we have multiple programs. So there's like, whether you're beginner, more advanced, there's something for you. And then we also have a Power Abs in the kitchen. So nutrition book now, which, a lot of people know if you're going to get abs, it's important that you're eating well too. So we started off just as the program, and then we have the book. So it's kind of like they're perfectly fit for each other. And as far as like the confidence thing, I think a lot of it is just taking like people that aren't consistent with their training because life happens, their work, their kids, this, that. And it basically just shows like, if you have 10 minutes, then you have time for yourself, and you need to make time for yourself, because if you don't, nobody else is. And I think that's kind of like where they start. It's just like, okay, I'm going to do this 10 minutes. And from doing like, I feel like anybody that works out, like when you work out, then you all of a sudden start making healthier choices, like whether it's your nutrition or sleeping more, or, I mean, maybe even just like starting to work out a little bit more. Like you start with 10 minutes and then it turns into 15 and then slowly becomes more. So it's just starting off with a little something, and then that just continues to grow.
I love that.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
That. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that we preach endlessly with Power Monkey, especially on the gymnastics side, is the idea of a strong core leads to strong movement. And, having a strong core from the gymnastics world will allow you to get into the positions that you need to for higher level skills. So I'm all about it. I think it's a great idea, and congratulations on the success so far. Hopefully we can get some more people pushed over to your direction with Power Apps. So congrats on that.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Yep.
I wanted to say, I mean, I love that part of it, yes, but I love the 10-minute part of it. As you mentioned, it's hard for people to dedicate to things. We all have busy lives and other goals that we're trying to accomplish and everything else. And so, I mean, I would love to, and I will, but I would love to be able to point someone to this, because it's more sustainable in the beginning than having them do a 60-minute workout or even a 30-minute workout, or even to go to the gym. I love what this can potentially lead to. As you said, maybe they work out for 15 or 20 minutes after they do, a month or 2 or 6 months of 10 minutes. So I love it as an initiation into doing something, and the idea of making that 10 minutes 5 days a week routine, and then building on that. I think people can wrap their mind around that. And I think that's probably, from what I've learned in giving people assignments through the years and workouts, when I change only one thing and I add only one thing to the routine, they have a much better chance of hanging on to it. So it's, I think there's a lot to be said there for the success that you have as well.
Thank you, Chad. I agree.
Well, unfortunately, we're getting towards the end of our hour together, and we always like to end our discussions with some similar questions for our guests. Are you up for some quick questions?
Of course.
All right, first one I know the answer to, so we'll just blaze right through this.
You never know, Dave. You never know.
True, I guess. What sport or discipline do you prefer, weightlifting or gymnastics?
Gymnastics.
Yeah, see that? Chad was holding out for like just a glimmer of hope.
Yeah, he's like,
maybe.
Yeah,
maybe
because she's working on her squat. Maybe she's learned to love it.
And I have this. So, Kari, just a little background. We do this with every guest, and I'm like just smashing Chad right now.
Oh yeah,
in the win total. And I can't say that I'm the one that like books the guests or anything. It's someone else. So it's I'm not paying anybody off here. I think it's just becoming pretty clear where weightlifting and gymnastics stand against each other. So,
and to be fair, we don't have a lot of weightlifters on, but a couple of them have actually said gymnastics. So I mean, what's going on?
Chad, what do you prefer?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I'm one that likes the challenge, right? So yes, of course, I love weightlifting. It's my love. And this is not a diplomatic answer, Dave, by the way. Of course, I would choose weightlifting, but it's hard for me to say that because I love the challenge of gymnastics. I mean, the only thing in gymnastics that I'm decent at is that I've got strength and ability to do all of it. But handstand push-ups are really easy for me, but pull-ups, man, after 3 or 4 reps, they kill me. It's almost as bad as running for me. So if I run for anything past 100 meters, I'm dying, right? I get to fatigue so quickly, and it's the same thing with pull-ups. So it's hard for me to say because I love the challenge of not being good at something and trying to improve at it.
Cool.
I like gymnastics.
Yeah, you're not even gonna. Yeah, of all the squats that you've done over the.
I have my Vaughn weightlifting barbell right behind me here. Yeah. I very much enjoy lifting it up and putting it back down. But Kari, you mentioned earlier, gymnast legs are just not meant for heavy weight. I mean, I'll do lightweight, good position, good technique all day. But my legs are bird legs. They are just meant for planches. They are meant for being upside down. That is what they're built for. So I appreciate the technical part of it, but I am not lifting any weight that's going to impress anyone ever.
Well, the unfortunate part about this is that I used to always say my legs and my butt are too big to run and to do a lot of pull-ups for any amount of time. But I mean, there's enough athletes doing an endless number of pull-ups that have big legs and butts. So I can't use that as an excuse anymore.
Outliers. Last question from me. Any guests that you think would be great to have on our podcast? Anybody that comes to mind?
I don't know. I really like Bethany Shadburn. She's one of my favorite CrossFit athletes. And I think she has a lot of good outlook on life. And I think she could relate to people too, because she's had, unfortunately, like a lot of injuries, but she's stayed so positive throughout it. So I think she could be a really cool guest.
Great. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure. I've got a few questions for you. Last couple, and we'll get you out of here. Do you prefer reading a book, watching a movie, a documentary, or a TV series?
Reading a book.
Reading a book.
I actually when I lived in New York for the 7 years, I did not have a TV. So
really?
Yeah, and I just got one when I moved to Vegas because I was like, now I actually have a house and there's like a special TV stand like built in. And I was like, people are going to be coming over more, so I probably should get a TV. So, but yes, reading a book.
That's a whole other podcast to interview you on not watching TV for that length of time. That's amazing.
Right. I think that helped me like be able to do my business too, because you
Sure.
don't have a TV and you're not watching it. Like I might like watch like one movie on my computer once a week.
Sure.
But yeah, you can spend a lot of time in front of a TV and not realize it.
Mhm. It's amazing that, well, I don't know if you watch Netflix on your phone, but it's amazing to think of someone this day and age living without Netflix or Hulu, from my perspective.
Especially during quarantine. That was,
Yeah.
that was crazy, but I did.
Well, being that books are your favorite, do you have one that you would most recommend to us and the listeners?
Yeah. So my favorite that I've read so far is Atomic Habits. Just because it is like something you can relate to daily life and just, I don't know, make the most out of each day. And like, you can read like little parts at a time. Like you don't have to sit and read the whole thing. Like it's actually better just to read like a little bit and then like relate it to your life. And you can realize like a lot of little things that you can change to get more time in your day or just make life more beneficial or just feel more fulfilled.
Awesome. We'll add that one to the list as well there, Dave, for sure. That sounds like a good one.
I've read that one. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a great book. Yeah.
Well, Kari, can't thank you enough for coming on. It was a great conversation and a learning experience for me as well. Before we get out of here, do you have any parting words for our listeners? We talked about Power Abs a little bit. Where can they keep track with that? And do you have anything coming up with that?
Yeah. So thanks for mentioning that again. And we actually have 2 new programs that we're working on right now. So we videoed one last weekend. We're videoing another one this coming weekend. So it's been really cool because after the games, like training for me has been a lot more low key and slower. So I've been able to like shift gears and really focus on the business, which is really cool. And like I said, the Facebook group is continuing to grow. So it's a really cool community in there. And yeah, if people are interested, they can just check out my Instagram. There's a lot of befores and afters and things. And the Facebook group is just Power Abs ! So if people want to learn more, they can jump in there as well.
Awesome. Definitely recommend that the listeners check that out for sure. Again, I think it's just a very powerful method, whether you intended it to be or not, starting out with 10 minutes and building on top of that. So, guys, as always, we very much appreciate you listening in. Be sure to head over to powermonkeyfitness.com for services and upcoming events. Also, Power Monkey Fitness on Instagram. That's at Power Monkey Fitness. On behalf of Power Monkey Fitness, we're your host. I'm Chad Vaughn with Dave Durante. And until next time, guys, thank you all for listening.